Okay, welcome back. So, I would like to show what I've gotten recently and what I plan on doing with it, but at the same time, I don't want to partake in the relatively cringe culture of opening up boxes and having people watch. So, I'm going to be unboxing these. I'm going to be putting them back in the boxes that I got them in. I'll use them at some point, probably during the weekend, but I won't be putting them to work right away. Probably the first item that I'm interested in looking at is the cAP AX. I've been fawning over this item for quite a while. I'm a fan of MikroTik, and it gets difficult when it comes to the wireless area. When it comes to their wireless applications, they're never on the bleeding edge, which is understandable because they are more towards enterprise and to, high-end home users or small business. So cutting edge is never really warranted. But at the same time, their software flexibility and their hardware implementation is top-notch in my opinion. Here we have the cAP AX. It looks a lot like the cAP XL AC, but it's different because you do have Wi-Fi 6. This item you've probably seen in plenty of videos and renderings. It's quite thick, quite large. I think most of that is for adequate separation of the radio antennas. When it comes to the back, we have two Ethernet connections, both gigabit. I think hypothetically you could probably do some teaming with those and get a 2 gigabit connection. However, I'm not really interested in doing that. What I am interested in doing is having this as a single AP for now. I will be adding more that will be managed through Capsman and deployed in a fashion that is relatively simple, asterisk, asterisk, and expandable. Not only that, but the ability to, while on the same frequency, broadcast multiple SSIDs is fantastic. Not only that, but the flexibility and configurability of the antennas, I absolutely adore. But that's enough of this guy. Let's take a look at the RB5009, specifically the PoE version. I am a big fan of this item, especially after using the RB4011 for so long. I've been using that since 2019, and I will say it has definitely stood up to the test of time and the test of having unreasonable amounts of data thrown through its ports. The RB5009 is its spiritual successor. It does have fewer Ethernet ports, but this is fine. This is fine for multiple reasons. One, that the PoE accessibility has been greatly improved. If I recall correctly, with my RB4011, 4009, it's getting difficult to keep things straight. But with my RB4011, you had one PoE input and one PoE output. The PoE input was ATAF, which was Ethernet 1, and Ethernet 1 was essentially the designated WAN port. And when it came to the output, it was PoE also. However, the problem comes in when it came to what kind of PoE that was. That was passive PoE only. This was a bit of a challenge. It meant you could only really use MikroTik or older devices. If you want both PoE and gigabit, you have to use ATAF or one of the newer standards. When it comes to the build quality, I really like it. There's something about the metal, the way it sings. The way it sings when you brush it. That being said, it's relatively simplistic. It's got the ability to take in a huge voltage range. So if you see here on that 2-pin input, if memory serves, I don't have a sheet with me, a data sheet with me. If memory serves though, that should allow for everything from 24 to 57 volts input. The same goes for the DC barrel jack, and the same goes for the PoE in ports, which I believe is all of them. And also, the PoE out is ATAF on every Ethernet port. This is a fantastic upgrade. For a long time, I did use the RB5009 in PoE mode. It was good. The problem was with the security cover for that router board. When you have it mounted, now it is designed to be ceiling mounted. However, a problem arises, at least arose for me, when you have it both ceiling mounted and using PoE. So the Ethernet cable comes into Ether 1, the RB4011, just like this, the body is the heatsink. It's fanless, which is, important, especially when it comes to home and small business use. It heats up because the power coming in that's being injected over the data lines needs to be regulated and, goes through some processing when it hits the board. And that needs to be done on Ether 1 in the, the housing of the router board. And then, it's kind of like denoising a signal that has power also coming over it. That becomes an additional factor. And then you need to add to that with the location. It being ceiling mounted means that it essentially stews in its own pocket of warm air. It became problematic after a while. There was another factor that added to it, but overall it performed very well. It got toasty, high 60 degrees, but it performed, and it's still performing. This should be a worthy successor when it comes to the CPU and memory. I believe the memory was bumped up. No, the memory I believe is the same, 1 gigabyte of DRAM. The storage was bumped up from 512 megs to a gigabyte. I could be wrong. I think I'm confusing this with the cAP AX and cAP XL AC, but I'll leave that for you guys to look up online. Now, for what comes in the box. Let's take a look at the 5009 to begin with. Forgive me for I am single-handed in this. My other hand is holding the microphone. We have what looks to be a quick start guide. On the other side of it are, login information for the device. Some foam padding. This is normally where the 5009 will sit. Normally with unboxings, people revere the packaging that the item is brought in. This is nonsense. This is something that you look at for maybe 10 to 20 minutes tops, mostly in your peripheral vision, and then you put it in the bin. I'm not in the business of throwing money in the bin, and at the same time, why would I want to throw more in the bin? It's never seemed sensible to me. It does ship with a power brick. I don't need this. I have made other plans, but the RB5009, I've taken plenty of pictures of this for documentation purposes, including the voltage range and such of the power supply. Let me read this off to you. So it's a 2.5 amp maximum, 48 volt It's at 2 amps. This is good. This is good. 48 volts at 2 amps. That's a healthy voltage. DC, I should mention. So that's the RB5009. Nice, simple packaging, recycled cardboard. Came from the bin, it'll go back into the bin. Thank you, packaging, for getting the item here. That is packaging's only duty, not to look pretty. And here we have the cAP series. This is the cAP AX. Another quick start guide. On the other side is crucial information for setting up your device. I'll move that to the side. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. You do get a PoE power over Ethernet injector. Very, very good, because this is the kind of PoE injector that lets you maintain gigabit speeds. The other kinds are, what do they call it? Passive PoE. You want to be sure to get a gigabit PoE injector. Another set of wall mounting screws. There is a pack of these in the 5009 also. And here we have a wall wart. Relatively simple. This one I think is 24 volt. I like that they put higher voltage wall warts for, yes, 24 volts, 1.2 amps. I like this because we have 12 volt wall warts everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. They're plentiful. The problem is when it comes to actually transferring power, even though 12 volt is standardized, everybody knows it and is comfortable with it, and the DC barrel jack also, it doesn't have the same efficiency, especially when you're trying to do PoE, which could be hypothetically long runs as long as 100 meters or so. Yeah, it's not the best. 24 volt, that's better. 48 volt, even better. Especially for an item like this. I think in theory, well, also in practice, it can deliver 150 watts of PoE. If I had the things I would have done if I had access to this 5 years ago. Then we have this, which is a wall mounting plate. Handy, and that's all she wrote. Nice recycled cardboard. From the rubbish, and to the rubbish it shall return. I think this is good. I think this is simple. I've always appreciated the practicality when it came to MikroTik. There are other manufacturers out there that have better, more expensive, sorry, not better, but better is for you to decide. There are other manufacturers that have faster items, more expensive items, more often both at the same time. Others have cheaper, less functional. I've always found MikroTik to hit the nail on the head when it comes to practicality. And I have plans for these. I plan on using this not only as a router, but also for Docker containers. I do a lot of home labbing, in case some of you didn't know. I'll put up video tutorials if I find any that, any niches that haven't been filled as far as Docker on MikroTik. I really do want to have essentially a home lab all in one desk. It's very common to have a home lab sprawl to the point where it takes up the whole home and little else is left. But yeah, I'm looking forward to working with these. Thank you guys for listening. Take care.